Good morning, welcome to another Russ Does Jobs. Please like and subscribe if you find this useful. So today we're going to be changing the oil and filter on this 2016 Golf. So this is the 1.6 TDI, but so the method used is going to be the same for very much nearly all the vehicles. So we need access to the dipstick, we need access obviously to the oil filler cap, and we also need access to the oil filter, which is under here somewhere. So if you give this hard tug in each of the corners, that will come off. If we lift this out of the way, here we can see the oil filter is actually being blocked at the moment by the sensor. So we're going to need, for this job, we're going to need obviously some new oil, some new filter. We're going to need a T30 Torx bit, and we're going to need obviously oil filter, T30 Torx bit, and we're going to also need a 32mm socket with some sort of extension on it and a socket. So let's get cracking. Okay, so the first thing we need to do to get access to the filter, and you can see it under there, is remove this sensor. So it's literally T30 Torx bit. Just going to remove that. We don't need to remove it fully, it's literally just on a bracket. But once the screw's out of place, we can just pull it out of the way, and then that gives us full access to them. So we're going to take our 32mm socket, pop that on and undo. Okay, so without 32mm screws on, trying to do this one-handed isn't the easiest. So you're going to unscrew that. Once we get to the stage where it's loose, we'll just twiddle it by fingers. And then all we're going to do now, what I like to do is, because obviously it's going to be covered in oil and gunk and horrible stuff, what I normally do is get some tissue, and just as I'm pulling it out, because it's a bit of a wriggle to get it out of that gap, get some tissue just to hold it, just so it doesn't drip everywhere. Okay, so that out of place, just have to reach in. As I say, it's a bit of a jiggle to get this out, but it will come out without removing anything else. It's just a bit of a faff. So just pop your tissue underneath it just to catch any of the drips and dribbles, so you don't end up with oil all over your driver or wherever you're doing it. Lovely. Okay, so we've got the rubber filter, so the old filter sits in here. As you can see, there's 3 rubber washers there. There's one here and there's 2 at the top. So the new filter, you can see the new filter, nice and clean, shiny, comes with 3 new washers. So that one's for that one, that goes on the end, and then you've got a big one and a slightly smaller one which go on the ends of here respectively. Dush dush. So the best thing I've found for getting those on and off is just a small flat bladed screwdriver. Just gently prise underneath to oik it over. Same with this one, same with that one, and then the same to replace them. Just make sure those washers go on the same back places again, and then just give them a little coating. You'll probably find your hands are greasy and oily anyway, so just use a little bit of oil just to seal those with oil just as you're putting them back on. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so we've got the new rubber washers back on, 3 of them. So when it comes to the filter, there's 2 ends. Sometimes it will say top on there, but basically it's the hole with the end with the biggest hole on, so it's slightly smaller, goes over the end, and then firm push down, and the filter's back on. So it should be able to spin round freely without coming off. That's when we need it. And then we can stick it back in here. You can see I've just put a little bit of tissue over the top to make sure nothing nasty fell in the oil filter hole while we were doing that. And then it's just a matter of wriggling it back in again to get it back in the hole. The filter's back in place. do this nut back up again. Screw, sorry, whatever it is. And that's the filter done. So we're going to move on next to the oil. So as I say, we need access to the filler cap and just the dipstick. That's all we're going to need on this one. Okay, so we're going to be using a vacuum pump rather than the traditional method of jacking it up and taking the sump plug out. It's a lot easier when you're doing it at home, a lot less messy. So lots of different versions of this type of thing, but they all come basically the same. So it's vacuum, it's got a little handle to create the vacuum, and it comes with various pipes. So what I tend to like to do is I use the widest bore pipe that I can easily fit down the dipstick tubing. So that's where the pipe's going to go. We're going to obviously take the dipstick out and we're going to pop the pipe down there. So I like to use the tube that's the widest but easily slides down the bottom. You don't want to try and force it down there. You want something that slips nice and easily to the bottom of the drain pipe. Okay, so with these ones we're going to find the piece with the end on. We're going to push that firmly into the hole. It comes up to the end of this part, and then once you've found, I'm going to guesstimate it's going to be this one. So this one is going to connect onto the end of here, and that's going to push firmly onto there, and then we're going to insert the end of the pipe down where the dipstick goes. So as you can see, the pipe is fully inserted. It's not sticking on any part of the tube. It's nice and freely gone to the bottom of the pipe there. I can feel it. It's connected to that part, which is connected to here. And then all we're going to do now is give it 3 or 4 or 5, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see that. So we're going to give it a 4 or 5 pumps until you can feel, don't over pump. You can see the oil's coming out off the drain pipe there, and it's going into the reservoir down here. So once you feel resistance on the pump, then give it 1 more and then just leave it. Don't be tempted to over pump it, so you don't need too much vacuum. It's literally just creating a vacuum so that all the oil can then pour down into the reservoir, and in a moment you should be able to hear it all coming out and dripping into the pot there. So on these vacuum pumps is quite handy. So each one of these marks, these ridged marks you can see on the cylinder there, is actually a litre, so you know when it's coming out, because it's not see-through but it's sort of opaque, so you can see where the oil goes, and then you can see how many how many litres you've actually drained out. And then the nice thing about this is once you've set your vacuum, and you can hear it pouring into the bottom of the container, and you start to see it just filling up down the bottom there. Now's a perfect time to have a cup of tea and do whatever you want for the next 5-10 minutes. So if you feel that the flows slow down a little bit when it's going into the vacuum, you can give it another couple of pumps. As I say, don't overdo it. Something else I like to do as well is I just get a lump of blue tack and just cover around the dipstick tube, A, to make sure nothing falls in, and also B, creates a bit more of a suction, a bit more of a vacuum for the suction to work properly. Okay, so it's been draining now for about 15-20 minutes, so you can see the oil in the chamber there. I've removed the pipes. You'll know that when it's finished draining, because all of a sudden you'll hear air being sucked through the pipe instead of oil. You won't hear the oil going in, dripping in. You'll hear the bubbling of where the air goes in. So that's pretty much how you know it's finished. So I've removed the pipes, taken the pipe out the dipstick tube, put the dipstick down. So all we need to now do is locate the oil filler cap, take that off, and then we can top it up with nice clean oil. Okay, so just remember, when you're looking up your figures for how much oil to put back in, remember to check the figures for oil and filter, because remember we've changed the filter as well, and the filter is going to hold about half a litre on its own, so just make sure you look up the right figures so you know exactly how much to put back in. And that's it. Once we're done, I'm using a filter with a call it funnel with a filter in it, just in case there's any little bits there shouldn't be. But and that's it. We are pretty much click done. So I'm going to put the engine cover back on, and then we're finished. So all in filter change on this vehicle. So I hope you found this helpful. Please like and subscribe if you had, and look out for my next video. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.